Peace family. So I'm back with another one. So today what I wanted to do was to talk to my chosen ones about feeling or being isolated in the process once you are already isolated. You know what I'm saying? So I know a lot of us talk about wanting to be isolated or are already in a space to where you're isolated, you know, and we talk about cutting people off and removing people, you know, and just different energies that we don't need in our life, right? But while I was out yesterday and today at the beach just doing some meditation, I realized that once you get to a certain point of quote-unquote isolation and cutting people off, there is nobody else to cut off, or there is nothing else for you to isolate yourself from. Because somebody was talking and then I wanted to chime in about cutting off or isolating, but as I thought about it, I realized all the energies that was trying to wiggle around and be witchy in my space had already removed themselves, the bulk of them. Let's say if it was 10 of them, 9 of them removed them, 9.5 removed themselves, you know. And it's like for the other rest of them, those are the ones that I cut off and removed myself personally. So once you already in that phase of isolation, when I was meditating, what was coming to me was isolation should be more so of your cocoon phase. So y'all know I did the butterfly caterpillar segment, but your isolation is supposed to be your cocooning phase. It shouldn't be a process as into where you are isolated for the rest of your life. You know, you're isolating and you're cutting people off and removing people because you want to raise your frequency. But you don't know if you honestly, genuinely raised your frequency until you are interacting with other beings. So as much as we don't like to acknowledge that we do, we compare ourselves to other humans. That's how we all grow. Neighbors compare themselves to neighbors, you know, like one squirrel see one squirrel doing something, another squirrel like, oh shit, they got some food over there, they follow them, you know. It's just our natural nature. But understanding that when you isolate it, it's just supposed to be a cocoon phase. You shouldn't be feeling isolated for the rest of your life, because we are humans. And I just say that as plain and simple because I understand we are spiritual beings having a human experience. But it just reminds me of like how we are supposed to be interacting and engaging with each other. And I know the Matrix is working the opposite. It wants us all separated and not contacting and doing all this other stuff that's just not humane. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't follow the natural flow. But you should have a time period to where you're in your cocoon. Because even with the butterfly caterpillar thing that I was talking about, it's only a phase, a period of time that they're in these cocoons. So then you have to come out of your isolation phase. Not saying you got to deal with the same energies that you dealt with before, because you have to be a strong being to understand when you're diving back into them spaces how to be more self-aware when you're in those spaces, and also how to manage your energy and emotion. Because if there are beings that used to work your energy up, you're going to have the whole package when trying to go interact. But just as far as going back and engaging with life, you know what I'm saying, and getting back out to trying to engage with beings, you know what I'm saying, like everybody's blending in, so you don't know who's who and what's what until you actually start engaging with some. Now others, it is a handful that you can tell just by the outside. If you're really good at reading energy, you can tell by the outside what's going on, so you don't even have to open those doors up. But when I was saying that and I realized like, oh shit, I don't need to say I'm isolated or isolating myself from anybody or cutting people off, because I already cut everybody off. There's nothing else to isolate myself from. So now I'm in this space where I done been through this cocooning process several times. But I just look at it as a more recent one, because this is another chapter, another journey in my life. So for me, it's like, all right, now I've cocooned back up, and I was cocooned in there, and I was doing some work on the inside, you know what I'm saying? And I started getting some work done on the outside as well too. And then it became to where I took my trip. It was just a day trip, just to go get by the water, just to get in new energy, you know. And it's only like 4-hour drive for me, so this shit is nothing. But I realized, like, just even being in that space for that time span, I realized that I have to get back out. Not saying that I don't, but for the ones that's not, and I have been pushing myself back out more as far as like being in the matrix of groups of people. Like, groups of people is just really weird for me, because I don't know what's up with your energy. So groups of people, it's really weird for me. If I knew the energy, I would be okay with it. I know wholeheartedly I would be okay with it. But just being in the mix of all the energies and just not knowing what's what, you know, then you got some really good manipulators in the mix. It becomes a lot to try to balance and manage. But I realized, like, I have to get back out and experience life, because that's where the lessons come from. How do I know that all that time and work I was putting into my cocoon phase, how do I know if I was making real progress? I wouldn't know if I'm making real progress if I'm not engaging and interacting with other people, you know? So for me, I'm able to, when I engage with other people coming out of the cocoon process, I'm able to reflect and do some self-awareness work and reprocess my engagements and my encounters. And I can also compare those with my old engagements and old encounters when I would meet people, you know, before I went into my cocoon phase. But the thing is with that is we had a spiritual war, so, you know, it's gonna be hard to, like, really want to grow and do it in the most healthiest, proper manner, and you are still allowing all that fear to outweigh everything. And that's why I always say it's good to start with small tasks, as far as like breaking that little bit of fear, starting from somewhere, because it's a lot of this shit being pushed out here, you know what I'm saying? But coming out of that cocoon phase, it feels good, you know, because it's like, if you done already been through several cocoon phases, you already understand, like, it's almost like a breath of fresh air, but it's a breath of fresh air that you're aware of. Caterpillars to butterflies are not aware of, I'm pretty sure they're not aware of the transition. Once it goes in and it comes out, I'm pretty sure that's like a rebirth process. You know, I cannot personally talk to them per se, but I'm pretty sure, just reading the energy and trying to tap in as much as I can, I'm pretty sure they don't remember. We don't remember a lot of shit as well when we come back in any rebirths. But you got a whole nother perspective and you can remember. That's what makes us more powerful, and why I feel like it's our job to be taking care of the universe out here. Now, imagine if all of us humans was doing our jobs and taking care of the universe and whatever other tasks that we had to do while we was here. We wouldn't have the birds afraid of us. We wouldn't have the squirrels afraid of us, you know. Whatever state you in, it could be alligators. Alligators is going to be alligators, but it's cultures that I've seen, and their main base of their culture is based around protecting their alligators, you know. So even with the alligators, some of the, you know, the most quote-unquote meanest creatures, is like, you can establish a relationship with them. Like, I got rabbits, I got a rabbit, some squirrels, I got all different kind of birds that pull up, I got a chipmunk that pulls up, they all come up. And it always reminds me when I take care of them out there and I put the little bread or whatever fruit, so I put out there shit, it's like, it hits the ground, they all get what they can, but when it goes down first, the first ones that's on it is the smaller bugs, you know, the ants, the beetles, everything that can get to it first before the birds and the squirrels get to it, because they're bigger. And they all kind of have it situated to where anything that's in this vicinity, you know, they're gonna pull up right there and they liable to catch them. So sometimes I just catch them out there just waiting for me. And I can only imagine if we took care of all of the universe this way, how much more smoother things would be running, and it wouldn't be such a big differentiation between us and the rest of the animal life that's out here, you know what I'm saying? And that was kind of getting me like into a whole nother space, because I love life, you know what I'm saying? Don't matter what the fuck I go through, like I love this shit still. I love it. And it just reminded me of coming out of the cocoon phase. Like, you aware, way more enlightened, and it's like some things the English language just doesn't do any justice for, you know. But it's something that you are aware of and you experience, and it's almost like in the Western world, it almost feels like another superpower, a new ability that you just got, because now you in the mix of this spiritual war going on. And you know, 9 out of the 10 motherfuckers that's in your spiritual space or in your physical space is gonna be witchy. You know what I'm saying? It makes it easier to manage being in that energy, around that energy, you know, just having to communicate with that energy. It just makes everything so much easier, and it soothes it. You know, shit that used to stick on you doesn't stick as much. The shit just slides right off. Like, it's a whole nother different, but it also depends on what level you at too. But at the same time, either way, it doesn't matter if you moving with the greater good in the universal creation flow, you know what I'm saying, the natural flow of life. You're gonna experience it, because that's kind of part of the reward. You know, we get spiritually rewarded for fighting this fight, and it feels amazing when you do start reaping the spiritual rewards from it, even if it's not a super big bag, because money is not gonna have anything to do with the spiritual reward that you receive. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just always aware of it, and I just love the spiritual reward that comes from putting in the work. You know what I'm saying? And moving in this light. If I didn't have to fucking do certain things and grind for the bag and do that shit, like, I would be doing all of what I love doing this freely, consistently, daily, kind of like I do now, but I wouldn't have as much hassle as far as keeping up with their financial system, all that pretend shit that comes with the Matrix, you know what I'm saying? But you're not supposed to stay isolated forever, you know what I'm saying? You have to come out and test the waters. You don't know how you handle energies and handle your own energy and motion if you just keep yourself cocooned off. So you got to think about it. If you was a caterpillar and then you went into your cocoon and you just sat there forever, that means you kind of stopped your own growth and ascension. You have a whole nother chapter in the journey, but you're hindering your own chapter and journey because you cocooned off, because of the way this Western society is structured and the way it forms us to be submissive and to be all weird and witchy and to fucking do all that shit that's in the way, you know what I'm saying? But even if we have to be around it, you know, because we have to take on different tactics. That's the trickiest thing about all of this. Like, we are so intelligent on a whole nother level that if it was no Matrix in place, we would probably eradicate all of this a lot sooner. But because we have access to different frequencies, we can still bang this spiritual war out with less beings, physical beings, you know what I'm saying, and still do what we got to do, because the physical beings is just a vessel for the spiritual beings, you know what I'm saying? So, but you got to understand that if it was more physical beings around, it would be way more vessels to use to get to do the work that's supposed to be done, you know what I'm saying? But I ain't want to run it up too long, you know what I'm saying? Y'all tapping everything down below. Peace and love to the kings and queens.